Thank you for opening up this slideshow. I gave this at the Unitarian Church in Galloway, New Jersey on September the 21st, 2025. That was Sunday, a day set aside for solar power support. And because of that, I was going to speak about an environmental issue. Like most people who speak about environmental issues, I'm going to start off gloomy. Over 400,000 species are expected to be extinct, gone from the earth completely by the year 2100. Why should you care about this? Well, if we lose most of our animals, we're going to lose most of our plants because animals help plants breed. And if we lose most of our plants, we're going to lose all of our animals because every bit of food in the earth is created or starts with photosynthesis, and animals don't photosynthesize. So plants are necessary to the creation of animals, and all of that is necessary for the well-being of humans as well. Now, the stuff I'm going to say does not come from my own research. Most of it depends on work done by Professor Doug Tallamy at the University of Delaware. And I will further admit that my wife, B.J. Wagner, produced a slideshow like this one about a year ago, and that I took advantage of it to prepare this one. So a lot of people in South Jersey like to see birds. It's one of the wonderful things about our area. And if you like them, you ought to ask yourself, what is it that birds need to survive? Well, obviously they need to eat. And what do they eat? They eat local bugs and caterpillars. Now, you may remember when you were a kid that you could go out on a summer evening and see hundreds or thousands of fireflies dancing in the night. You could take a glass jar and fill it with so many fireflies that it would light your face up. We don't see them anymore. The reason is, of course, light pollution, but that feeds into what we're going to say. Another aspect that reveals the lack or reduction in the number of bugs on the earth. You may remember driving down the highway, and if you went 60 or 100 miles, you'd wind up with splattered bug bodies on your windshield. It doesn't happen anymore, and it's not because the cars are designed better. It's not because they're more aerodynamic. It's because there are fewer bugs in the world. So you should be asking the question, what do the bugs eat? Now, by the way, when I say bugs in this presentation, I'm talking about any kind of crawling or flying invertebrate. The difference between a spider and an ant is not of interest to me today. In general, bugs and plants have developed these very tight, specific relationships because of what I'll call our Darwinian survival slow dance. The plant doesn't want to be eaten, so it creates toxic agents to keep animals away. A few kinds of animal will need that plant so much they'll develop defenses against the defense. And of course, the plant develops a new defense, the animal develops a new counter defense, and eventually you wind up with these really specific relationships, such as this elephant hawk moth, which can eat fuchsia, which no other animal can eat. Now, let's say that you are about to retire and you got $1 million. You don't have $1 million. I just needed a number to make this analysis work. If you invested at 5% interest and 3.5% inflation, you can withdraw $3,500 a month every month until you're 103. On the other hand, if half of that $1 million is a non-productive resource, like your house, like art, like your car, that isn't going to produce income, that same withdrawal rate will result in you running out of money by the age of 83. And the reason that I want to emphasize that non-productive resource is because of that tight relationship between plants and animals means that a Eurasian landscape like this, full of plants from China and India and Australia and South America, for many animals might as well be this, because it's not food for them. Now, the investment curve looks like this when you apply it to environmental issues. This is a chart showing the incidence of Earth Overshoot Day. Earth Overshoot Day is the day on which the Earth has used up all of the resources that the Earth's going to produce. And the rest of it means what we were referring to before as dipping into capital or dipping into principal. In 1972, Earth Overshoot Day didn't occur. It was the end of the year. In 2025, Earth Overshoot Day was the 25th of July. We needed 1.8 Earths to feed one human population. And the earlier Earth Day gets, the more we're depleting our resources. What's caused the loss of plants and wildlife? Well, about half of it is the changes in land use and habitat. It's the building of hard landscaping like roads and buildings and airports. It's the harvesting of trees and the removal of swamps. It's the creation of homes, which we'll talk about very, very soon. Another thing that happens is the species overexploitation. A good example for South Jersey is the horseshoe crab, which produces a blood that's very useful for testing for endotoxin. So useful, in fact, that the pharmaceutical industry has been harvesting so many horseshoe crabs that there's not enough of them to feed the red knots, a type of bird that flies through Cape May in the spring, that they can't feed them anymore. And both numbers are declining. Global climate change has, of course, affected many animals, but we're going to be talking about the invasive species and disease, and it has an element for changes in land use. As I said, plants from other parts of the world can be invasive. And invasive has two characteristics. One is that it's foreign. It doesn't come from here. So not a lot of animals eat it. And the other is that it's aggressive. It will rapidly grow and displace the thing that's there. You can see the clematis here in this picture is covering the trees, blocking the sunlight, starving the tree from the food it makes from photosynthesis, and the trees die. And there's nothing left but the clematis. On the other hand, nature is resistant. You may have heard that the Cuyahoga River burst into flame 13 times in 100 years. After the Clean Water Act of 1970, the state started cleaning up the Cuyahoga River, and now it's a nature reserve, and people go to it for recreation and to visit the natural world. You remember the Chernobyl incident in 1986? There was so much radiation released that the Soviet Union set aside about 1,000 square miles of land as being unsuitable for people. But they didn't tell the animals that. And the animals have flooded back in. Not only usual plants like oak trees or cypress trees, but birds like this one, and even bobcats and lynx and bears. The nation recognizes the need to save and preserve wildlife. And they created 89 million acres of national parks in the United States. On the other hand, they're not connected. Even a couple of parks that look like they're very close on this picture might be 50 miles, might be 100 miles apart, which is too far away for the wolves on one to interact with the wolves on the other. So if there's a disease that affects one of those populations, the other one can't come to the rescue by providing support. Almost as bad, Wanda Wolf in Wind Cave can't get to know Wally Wolf in the Badlands, and so she's only got to breed with close relatives that she wouldn't otherwise have had to. Doug Tallamy produced a recent book called Nature's Best Hope that talks about a way to overcome these obstacles. And let me warn you, the best hope is us. And the best hope is based on the idea that 83% of the land in the United States is in private hands, and that private landowners have a right to put any kind of plant they want on that land. And if they choose to put plants that feed the environment will respond positively. So far, 46,000 people have set aside 61,000 properties comprising 108,000 acres in the United States. In New Jersey, where I live, 1,400 families have set aside 2,000 properties comprising 8,400 acres. Don't worry about the percentage, they're on a different basis. So what is it that you can do to make things better? What can you do? Well, you could join Homegrown National Park. You could log on to the site. You'll notice that the web page is really easy, Homegrown National Park, no capitals, no punctuation, no spaces.org, and see what they have to tell you. What they will tell you is celebrate the treasures. Here in front of my house, you see a couple of red oak trees. An oak tree is a wonderful, what the Ptolemy calls keystone species. An oak tree can support 570 different kinds of caterpillars and 147 different kinds of birds. And that, knowing that the oak trees are that important, enables you to say, hey, these are something that I need to protect. Another thing they'll teach you is to ask of your gardens not what we always have, which is just be pretty, but instead, does my garden feed moths, insects, and pollinators? It will teach you to get rid of invasives. Again, you can see the clematis climbing up on the tree and blocking the sun. Vines in particular irritate me. Wild grape, porcelain berry, clematis, honeysuckle, English ivy grow all over my neighborhood, and they fight the natural wealth that we enjoy. On our property, we had a bunch of English ivy. We cut it back, and we wound up with naked ground like this, and then in a year or two, we had a meadow full of violets and black-eyed Susans, and underneath those plants, there's lots of insect life that's feeding the birds. Another thing we did, this in the right-hand side, you can see the trunk of that oak tree I showed you before. The leaves would come down and we'd sweep them up. And when we swept them up, any larvae or egg or other kind of insect that was in the leaves was pushed around and piled up in a wet mass that compressed and killed them. We now let the leaves sit in what we call a soft landing, and the larvae work their way into the ground, and they come back out as a mature insect in the spring and feed the birds and the other animals. We had a mimosa on our property that was very pretty, but it was invasive and didn't feed the plants, the world. We replaced it with a redbud, which is pretty nice. Another thing you can do is check your score. There's a recent software called Wilder, W-I-L-D-R, no E, where you can put in the data about your property and find out how well you're doing at supporting natural resources. We allow only natural plants in our garden. You can see the Culver's root and the bee balm and the Joe Pye weed and the hyssop in this picture. In the summer, this garden is just buzzing with insect life. And of course, in the fall, the birds come in and get something. Even if you don't have a 5-acre property, it's okay to start small. People in New York will put a planter like this one on a fire escape. And a butterfly on its way from Vermont to Mexico might stop at that plant. It's a rest stop on the highway. And they make it to Mexico where they wouldn't otherwise. So in summary, you are nature's best hope. You are the person who can save wildlife right at home.